A lot of the software at your work is installed automatically in the background, but do you know how it's done? I will show you how to do this using Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Irvin, also known as Kobuman. Welcome to my training course video on SCCM, Endpoint Manager, and how basically server and client works when it comes to the software distribution. This is really simple to understand. It's kind of hard to explain though. But that's okay, I'm going to try my best, and I guarantee you that you will be able to understand exactly how this works at the end of this video. So first thing first, I'm using virtual machines. These are virtual lab machines provided to me by Microsoft.com. So I have a specific link where you can download all these virtual machines. You load them up into Hyper-V, and you will have all these machines that are set up as you can see here. I got client 1 through 6 here, and I've got the content manager, the main controller, and other servers that are required for this setup to work. Okay, just throwing that out there real quick. Again, if you need a link to this, let me know in the comment and I'll send you a link. However, keep in mind that you do need a hefty computer to run this with a lots of RAM and processing power. All right. Also, if you got a moment in the comment below, please say hello, hi, or present, so that way I know you're interested in this type of content. So today we have a couple of things, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. We got Windows 11 machine that's also set up, and we also got a couple of servers that are set up. One of the servers controls the software distribution, and this is done through the Microsoft Endpoint Manager. So as soon as this loads, this will allow you to basically control the software distribution of every client computer that's connected to your domain, to your network. So this is done in two parts. This is the front end of it, and if I click here on devices, you can see there are some devices that are online and they are active, and we'll certainly get back to this. But I do want you to know from the beginning of this video that this is the software that controls this, and this is the software that installs everything on other computers that are on the network, including the client software that works together with this, that allows it to communicate to that computer and send it software updates, Windows updates, and etc., or just new software installations. So this used to be known as SCCM, and now it's called Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. All right, so now that we got this out of the way, let's see how it looks like on the client side. So I'm just going to leave this up, and I'm going to open up this other machine that has client software installed on it. All right, so I'm going to pull it up, and the client side of it is called Software Center, and the client itself, the executable, is called ccm.exe. So when I open this up, you will see the software that's on the local computer, and on every other computer that's connected to your work, to your domain, to your network, will have this software installed on it. And here is where you would control the installation or removal or updates or anything that's going on when it comes to the software that's being installed on this computer. All right, so here's an example of it. This is something that I've made. I went ahead and recreated the environment that's similarly set up to my current job as a reference because it's fresh in my mind. I digress. This will be how it's going to look like on other businesses as well, just maybe different icons and whatnot. So this is something you would pull up on a local computer that will allow you to reinstall programs. Here's a good example of this. Here's Google Chrome. If I click on this, you can see that the Google Chrome comes up, and this is the installation. This is the software package for Google Chrome. And you can see that's already installed. And if you look on the left up here, you can see that the Google Chrome is installed here just by looking at that icon. If I click reinstall, I can simply reinstall, and it will basically automatically reinstall Google Chrome. So that's great. And there are a couple of ways to go about it as well. So if I go click back on the applications here, application tab, you can see there are other things here like PuTTY. PuTTY is used to, for some other systems. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to get into this. But it's just another software that's installed on this computer, and it's being pushed by, remember, by the Endpoint Configuration Manager, right? So the Endpoint Configuration Manager, in the name itself, it controls the endpoints, and the endpoints in this case are these other computers that are at the end of the network, if you will. All right, so the next tab here is updates. What you would see here is typically Windows updates and whatnot, but you could potentially see some other updates as well. So if there is anything available that hasn't been installed, that is pending the install, it will show up here. Right now there is nothing, and that's fine. If you click on the operating systems, this would have the list of the similar things when it comes to updates or software. Installation status, it shows you what has happened recently. And you can see here that the recent thing that was installed, and that is Google Chrome and PuTTY. All right, so this is just installation of the status of the software that's being pushed to your computer. And we got things like device compliance, and this is basically just to make sure that everything is okay when it comes to the compliance settings between the server and the client. And then we've got other options here. So this is basically just the hours that are basically business hours, and then you can make some settings here. But we got also power management here. You can say do not apply power settings from my IT department to this computer. We got some computer maintenance things and remote control. Anyways, I want to get away from this part of it for now because I want to show you how this works from the scratch. Okay, so now you know that the main computer that controls the pushing of the software is done by Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager, right? So this is connected to the server, and this will basically distribute and install all the software, and the software at the local level is being controlled by the client of the Microsoft Endpoint Manager that is called Software Center, and this is how you would install it at the local level. All right, I hope that's easy to understand. I know it sounds like it's complicated, but it's really not. You got a server which is controlled by Microsoft Endpoint Manager that sends the software to the other computers, and the other computers install that software by using locally installed piece of software that works with that is called Software Center. All right, so the things I'm going to concentrate on here are directly going to be related to the software distribution, and for those reasons I'm going to point and only talk about things that are directly related to that, because there is a lot to talk about, and we can certainly talk about that in the future video, but this directly pertains to tech support that you will most likely be doing at first. So again, we are looking at the Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager, which controls our devices, right? So this is why I'm highlighting devices here first, because we're going to concentrate on that. So here is a device that we just looked at. So let's just kind of stick with this one. It doesn't matter. This GW1 is basically a host name for the computer that we're looking at here. The green check mark means it's online and it's active, as you can see here to the right. So what does active mean? It means that the client that's installed on it is active and it's talking to the Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager, which is great. That's exactly what we want. However, we have all these other computers that are not, they don't have a green check mark, right? CM1 is fine, and then we got client 2 and then client 1. This client 2 here means that it's offline. That means that the computer itself is literally offline. That means it's not connected to the networking, it's not turned on. So if I go back to my Hyper-V here, you can see that the client 2 is turned off. That's its state. It's turned off. It doesn't see it. But you can see that it can see a client 1, even if the client itself is not active. You can see all these other computers that are running, including CM1, DC1, GW1, and iNet. You can see all of these. You can see all of these, but you can also see whether the client, again, that software center that's installed locally, you can tell whether it's active, basically whether it's installed or not. All right, and here is client 1. This is the one we have, and you can tell that it doesn't have the active indication here. That means the client software is not installed on it. So we're going to install it so this client 1 can receive software updates and software installs and everything else. After we do that, We're going to create a software packages. We're going to install that as well. It's going to be a great video, I promise you. Very educational. So we're going to install client software on it. So how difficult is this, right? Well, it's super easy actually, unless there's something wrong. So what you would typically do, you would look up the host name. In this case, it's client 1. So we have it up here. So I'm going to, this is Windows 11, by the way. So I'm going to look at the system and I'm going to look up its name. And it says here its device name is client 1, right? And you can see that the client 1 is part of this domain, which is called corp.contoso.com, right? So it's client 1, we have it up. And if I go to the start menu and if I look at all apps, you can see that the system or software center, is not installed on there. That means the client software is not installed, and this is why there is no green check mark. Now what you see here is something else we're definitely going to talk about. This thing called Client Center for Configuration Manager. It's going to be a very important thing that we talk about here shortly after we go through these other steps. All right, so let's install the Client Center. So let's go back to our server that controls this, which is this here, and we're going to simply right click it and we're going to select Install Client. Now this is the process you would push the client to, and it's just simple, next type of menu, right? So it's basically guided type of thing. So I'm just going to click next, and you can just change some settings, but you can say here, allow the client software to be installed on the main controller, blah, blah, blah. This is what's typically done, and that is to install the client software from a specified site, right? So this is what I typically do. That means that this is set up so that there is a copy, or at least there should be a copy of client software that they can be pushed automatically to these computers. So, and I say automatically because this is supposed to happen automatically for every computer that's connected to the domain. So as soon as Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager and its system sees that a new computer is added to the domain, it's supposed to automatically install clients on them. Why this didn't happen here, it doesn't matter, because it's a good learning experience, a good learning opportunity, I should say. So we're going to leave it this. Install the client software from a specified site. There should be a copy of it. That's what that means. There should be a copy of the client software, which is again called ccm.exe. And we're going to click next. And it says here it's successful, including domain controller, blah, blah, blah. It says here it's successful. So now let's see if it's actually doing it. So if I go to this computer, and I will know if it's actually installing it. And this, by the way, may take up to half an hour to install, but that's okay. Sometimes it's less. I mean, it depends. I'm going to look at the task manager to see if there's anything in the background going. And sure enough, I don't see anything that's happening right now. So I don't see any install of ccm.exe going on here at all. There is no installer happening. You know how usually when you're installing something, you see like an installer running in the background. It's not working, right? So why it's not working? I think it's because it's finicky when it comes to Windows 11 at this point. Maybe there is a fix or whatnot, but I have a manual way to install it. And there's a specific thing you have to do. You can't just download a version of CCM from the internet and install it. You have to get a specific version. So for those reasons, we're going to manually install a client, just so you see how it's done in case you come across this issue. All right, so what I'm going to do, I need to get a copy of ccm.exe client, and this is going to be, of course, on the main server that is right here, right? So this is the server that distributes all of these things, so it should have a copy of it. So this is where you would find it. Hopefully it's installed the same on your computer, but if not, just ask your coworker if it's in a different place. But for me, default location is Windows C, but for me it's under Program Files. Let's see here if I can actually remember. Microsoft Configuration Manager Client. Here it is. This is what I want. So this is ccm setup.exe. Excuse me, I said ccm.exe, but it's actually ccm.exe. setup.exe. This is the application that we want. This is the client that we need to install. So what we're going to do is create a copy of it and copy it to that computer. And we can just $C into that remote computer. So again, I did a copy of it. So entire folder here. And this one is called client one. So I'm just going to do / client one /C$. And I'm just going to copy it here into the root of C, which is perfectly fine by me. Once it copies over, which should do it here in any second, let's switch over to the client, and we're going to go open up our root of C and look for this folder. And here it is. Here's our folder. It should be copied by now. And so I'm just going to right click. I'm going to right click and run it as admin. I'm going to run it as admin because you need to do that in order to make changes to your computer. Now I'm logged in as admin, so I didn't get any pop-ups asking me to provide admin credentials. But to prove it to you that it's actually happening, I'm going to open up a task manager here, and we can find that it's actually installing it in the background. Here we go. So it's installing this Visual C++ stuff. Redistributable software is basically, these are prerequisites to run this. So it's happening right now. And I'd say, well, it depends. Hopefully it does it soon so we can continue the video, right? So I can show you that it's installed. Let's see here. I know it takes a while, but let me see if the icon at least came up. All right, there it is. It finally installed part of it. It's still not finished installing because I know it's going to take a while. It's been 5 minutes, but if I try to open it now, it's just going to say it's not going to work, most likely. It's going to give me an error. Yeah, it's probably going to error out because it's too soon for me to open it. Well, maybe not. All right. So I'm glad to be wrong in this situation. It usually takes about half an hour. Admittedly, I have an i9 computer, so maybe that helps. All right, so it's installed, and just so you can confirm here, well, you saw that it's a new install here, but we're still at that client one computer. Just to prove it to you here. All right, we're going to go to the system here, and here it is. It's client one, and here is our software center, and here it's recently added software center installed on my computer. So this computer now under applications should receive the same software that is installed, that is available for the other computers too. But again, there's some kind of an issue with the Windows 11 that I would have to look at. So in this case, if you don't see anything when it comes to applications and you know it's supposed to be there, well, it's either one thing, you've recently installed the client software on it and it's not caught up when it comes to the updating of what needs to be installed. And you can fast forward this. And this is done through Control Panel. So if I open up my Control Panel here, Control Panel, there's going to be another software that is going to be installed every time you install the client. So now that I've installed SCCM setup.exe, it installed Software Center, and it also installed this thing called ConfigMgr, which is part of that. The reason this is basically used to basically kick off and refresh the policies when it comes to the software. And this is done through the actions here. So the actions tab, and this is how you would basically kick it into like overdrive or into a next gear to actually start to basically refresh and show the new software that's supposed to be added. So let's say you add new software to a specific computer and it's not showing up. It's like this, right? It's blank. Where is the new software? Well, this is how you would refresh it. So again, it's through Control Panel and then Configuration Manager Properties. And this is what I usually do. I would kick off, and this is basically a script, sort of like a GP update, or when you do flush DNS, it basically resets it and checks to see if there's new software available that is subscribed to this computer, meaning that there's a new software that's being pushed to it. So if I just click on this, application deployment evaluation cycle, and then click run now, or you can do, let's see here, software inventory cycle. Let's see what else can we do. Software update scan cycle. You wouldn't make a mistake if you actually went through all of these. And these can take a few minutes to update, right? And once they finish updating, new software will show up. All right. And you would get a basically pop-up notification. It would say new software is available. All right. So let's go to a one that I already have it installed so we don't have to wait. And that would be on this one here. So now we know how the server and the client part of it works when it comes to installing and distributing software. And it comes to mainly about distributing the software, right? But there are a lot of other things you can do when it comes to this type of stuff. And that is basically create new software packages. And we're going to do that here. We're going to create new software package. I'm going to show you in real time on how it's refreshed and added. So if I do a refresh here, remember that was a client one. If I do a refresh, it should see that there should be a check mark. Whoops. Let's do this here. Devices. There it is. Client one now has the client installed, and you can see there's a green check mark. Check mark with a green circle is there for our client one computer because we have installed the client. And now it can tell that it's not active yet, but it can tell that it's installed. And this is where the problem lies with that Windows 11 machine, that we have to do something, or maybe it takes time to install. Anyways, I want to move this video along. We're just going to concentrate on the ones that are working. In this case, we're going to just work with this one here. Why not? This one's called GW1 hostname. All right. So now we know how the client part of it is installed to distribute the software to it. And this is where we're going to concentrate on. Yes, if I click on client here, if I right click it, excuse me, we can do a lot of stuff in it, like run scripts, and you can send specific scripts that you have pre-made and this and that. There's a lot here. We can start, for example, Resource Explorer, remote control. We can initiate remote assistance. You know, we can access or use just a remote desktop client, all kinds of other things. But this video is for software installation and distribution, so we're going to concentrate on this on today's video. All right. You know what to do if you want future videos and if you want me to expand on this. So let's now learn how to actually create a new software package that we're going to push to one of our client computers. And I'm going to show you this real time. All right, so we're going to click on software library within Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. So it's right here, right? So under assets and compliance, we were earlier at assets compliance. Now we're clicking on software library here. And then we're going to go to application management, and we're going to use packages for this demonstration. If you look over here, you can see that our Google Chrome is present, and then our PuTTY release, I don't know why I said PuTTY release, it's just PuTTY, but it's a release 0.78. Anyways, this is the stuff that we see over here. So this is one of our client computers, and we can see that there's our PuTTY, right? That's the same thing we're looking at over there. And this is our Google Chrome. And here it says per system attendant. We're going to talk about that here in a moment. All right, so what we're going to do is, you've guessed it, we're going to create a new package, and we're going to create a package from definition. Why definition? Is because this is going to be a defined package that we're going to download. It's going to be very specific. So what we're going to do here, we're going to download another software that's kind of common that you be used by Windows computers. And that's going to be, I don't know, let's think of something here. We're going to use, I think I'm going to try to do Windows, let's see here. I think I'm going to try to go with Adobe Reader MSI. I'm going to type in MSI because we need Microsoft package to do this. Adobe Acrobat Reader. Sure, let's do that. We're going to specify Windows 10. Sure, why not? It should work fine here. Select language, English. Select version, read reader DC. All right, we're going to download this and we're going to extract. Hopefully we're going to be able to extract an MSI out of this executable. We'll see. All right, so I've downloaded it and I'm going to just right click it, see if I can extract it. Oh, maybe not. I may have to download a 7-zip or something like that. Well, in that case, let's just install 7-zip, right? Download 7-zip MSI. Just to get this going, here we go, 7zip.exe. Here we go. We need an MSI. We're going to download this. All right, because it's MSI, it just stands for Microsoft package installer or whatever. It doesn't matter. All right, so here is our 7-zip package. We're going to install 7-zip, but let's kind of stay organized. We have to stay organized because if you're going to do this as system admin, we're going to have to stay organized. We're going to copy it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it in the same folder where I usually keep my packages, and that is Windows C, and then under packages. And I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it 7-zip. I'm going to enter it and I'm going to paste our MSI package and Windows installer package inside of it. One thing to keep in mind is make sure that this packages folder that has all of your installation media, or I shouldn't say installation media, that's kind of misleading, installation files, executables, MSIs, or whatever else that you have in there, make sure that the security is set so that the domain users are allowed to read it and execute it. Same thing for domain users and domain computers. That's very important to have this there, so that way whatever's inside of these packages can be read, right? Because it's readable and it can be executable, and it can also be copied over. If you read something, you can copy it over, right? So you don't need full modify, you don't need full control, anything like that. We just have to make sure that under security here, we have domain users, domain computers added as read and execute. And you can obviously do this like this. So if you just do a domain, type in here and just do check names, it's going to pull up a bunch of things that you can choose from. Just make sure that you add domain computers and domain users, right? Click OK, apply, OK, and then make sure they're added in there so they can read the new packages, so they can read, in our case, our 7-zip, and so they can copy it over to a, well, point distribution point. Let's talk about that. I promise it's still going to be simple to follow. All right, so just to kind of reiterate, this is what we did. We right-click packages and we're going to create a package from definition, and I'm going to browse it. And yeah, you're right, we're going to browse into our new 7-zip folder, select our 7-zip Windows installer package. We're going to click open, and here it is. All right, we're going to click next, and then we're going to say this package does not contain any source files. That's not true. We're going to point to the source files. Always obtain source files from a source folder, because I want these source files, meaning this this package, I want it to be found, and I want it to be read, and I want it to be copied to a distribution point, which we're going to talk about next. So I'm going to click next. And here it says specify the package source folder, right? And we're going to specify the folder that we just used. I'm going to say local folder on the site server, and I'm going to click browse here. I'm just going to click select folder because it automatically defaults to it, right? So if you click browse, just click select folder immediately and it's going to default to it, or you can navigate to it, but this is what it is, right? So we're good there. So we're going to click next. Then we're going to click, this is just to confirm what we did, click next again. And we're going to do a little bit more here when it comes to deployment, when it comes to pushing, as they say, when it comes to pushing off the new software that we've just installed. All we did right now is just create a package. All we did was just create a package that we're going to push later on, which is now. We're going to do it now. Anyways, here's our 7-zip right here that we've added. You know, that's all great. So now we're going to right click it, and we're going to deploy it, right? We're going to deploy it. So we're going to have to do some things here. We're going to click for the software. This is just for general information. We're going to click on this. And this is basically what tells you gives you an option on how to install it, right? If you do a per system, for example, per system, that means per computer, for per entire computer. What I want you to concentrate on is whether it's attended, unattended, or if it's uninstalled. If you set it to per system, in this case attended, that means it's going to start to install it, but you have to be attended. That means you have to be present to click next and go through the menus to install it. Now, if you want it to be unattended, you can certainly do so, and it's going to silently install it. This is what you normally want. This is what you normally want in a business type of environment where you don't want the user to even notice that anything is going on. That means unattended, also known as silent install. And of course, you can send uninstall, per system uninstall, to remove it if this is what you want. So we're going to leave it at per system attended because I want you to see that it's actually working. That means we're going to get a pop-up. We're going to have to go to the menus to install it once it's pushed to that computer. So I'm going to leave it per system attended. I'm going to click OK. So, and the next part here is collection. So we're going to specify what kind of collection it is, meaning who are we going to push this to, right? Then we can specify different types of computers and systems, right? So this is self-explanatory. In this case, I'm going to just say all desktops and server clients, right? But if you want to specify something else, you can certainly do so. To keep it simple, we're going to do all desktops and server clients. So that's very easy to understand. We're going to click next. All right. So here is our distribution point. What are distribution points? Basically a place where a copy of this executable, or in this case, this .msi package is going to be held. So that way it can be accessed and then again copied over to the local computer for the install. So in this case, you can specify distribution point, or you can specify distribution point group. The way this is set up and the way I like it here is specify distribution point group because it's specifically set up for that. In this case, so again, so distribution point is just another place where the content, the executable, the program is copied over to, so it can be accessed by client computers later on when it wants to install them. So again, I'm going to click add here. I'm going to select distribution point group here, and I'm going to select here corp distribution point here, right? So I'm going to select that. And I'm going to click next. All right. So here is where we can specify some other things. It specifies the settings to control the deployment of it. We know the action is to install. We already told it that. Remember, we said it's going to be attended install, right? And the purpose here is required. That means it's going to install no matter what. If I click on this and just say, make it just so it's available and don't install it right now, do not install it right now if I leave it unavailable, right? So this is what I'm going to do because I want to show you how it works. So, but you can set up to be required. Let's say it's some kind of an update, like some kind of a security update or whatnot. You might want it to be required and this and that. Just be very careful and keep in mind the times when you're installing this, right? Because you don't want to mess up production when it comes to people using the computers. You don't want to be you don't want to have a production impact. All right. And then we got send wake up packets. This is just to wake up the computer if the computers are set up like that. And then here it says allow clients on metered connections. Anyways, that doesn't matter. These are just semantics. So I'm going to leave it at available. So all of that does is just going to show up in our software center on the client. It's going to show it up and say, hey, this is available. You can install it if you want. Click next. So here you can schedule it, right? You can schedule it if it's required. You can schedule it. So you might want to pick times that are like not during business hours. So past business hours, like midnight or something. I don't know. So these are the options you want here. I'm going to not touch this because I want it to do now. I'm going to do it immediately. So I'm going to click next. So these are basically things that you will allow to happen while the installation is happening. So, you want to basically leave this like it is because you don't want to basically say you want to allow system restart while the installation of the software is happening. So don't check any of these things. So just leave it as it is, right? how do you want this to behave based off your distribution point. Remember that distribution point group that I pointed to, where it's going to make copies of this so that clients can copy it to their own local? Well, this is the part of it. This is what we set up, and here is our first deployment option here. And it says here, download content from distribution point and run locally. This is what we've set up, so I'm going to leave it like that because I wanted to download content from distribution point and run locally, right? That's exactly what I want. The other option here is deployment option that client uses distribution point from a neighboring boundary group. We didn't set this up. We did not set this up, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. Do not run the program because we haven't set up a neighboring boundary group, meaning another location for a copy of this program. So I'm just going to leave it do not run. But if you set this up, you can say download content, do the same thing, but this is not what we've done. We've done the first part of it, and this using distribution point group. All right. So I'm going to leave it at this. I'm just going to click next, and then I'm going to click next. This is just to confirm all the things we've done. Click next. All right. So everything's successful here, as you can see. I'm going to quickly go to our machine here for applications. As you can see, there's nothing going on here right now, but we're going to go to our control panel. I'm going to go to Configuration Manager again. So we're going to kick it off. We're going to kick it off. I want you to keep attention to the entire screen here. I'm going to make sure it's zoomed out so you can see. So here are our actions. Now you can have a script that you can run so it does all of these at once, which I will talk about here in a moment after we're done with part of it. But right now we have to do it manually. Now if you like, this will do it on its own at some point because it's scheduled to cycle these. However, you know, in this case we're going to do it manually. But what I was going to say is, if you were to like reboot the computer, it will do this as well. So I'm going to say application deployment evaluation cycle. Let's run that. Let's do file collection cycle. And let's do software inventory cycle. Okay. And I think that's the one that will do it for us. So let's just give it here a moment, and I'm going to keep an eye on it. We should get a notification here shortly that new software is available. Let's do software update scan cycle. It just really depends. It may take a while. Software inventory. But, you know, if you're not sure exactly, like I'm not sure which one will kick it off here, when you think about it logically, right? Application deployment evaluation cycle should kick it off, right? Basically refresh this. But it's not doing it because it's finicky. But machine policy retrieval evaluation cycle could do it. I don't know. Software, you would think software inventory cycle would do it, but it's still not doing it. There it is. It popped up. It says here new software is available, and here it is. All right, that's a pop-up, and here is our 7-zip. Here's our 7-zip. And you can see that it's available to install. We're going to click install, and you get another pop-up, download and installing software. Users will just typically just get this little pop-up, and it says here downloading and installing software, and that will be it. But remember, this is attended version of it where I want you to see that it's actually doing it. So we're going to do it next. Next, we're just basically going to install 7-zip on here. All right. And that's that, right? Installation complete. But if we set it up to be unattended, it would just do it silently, and that would be that, right? So if we go back, now we can see that we have all of 3 of these. We can reinstall it, and this and that. And if we were to, you know, remove any of these, if we have problems reinstalling or installing, then there's other ways to troubleshoot. There are many things we can talk about here. Let me touch on this real quick here. If you're having problems removing these, and if you want to reinstall this software, I feel like it's important. This is how you would refresh it, right? If you want to remove 7-zip just out of the blue, matter of fact, let's just remove Chrome here. I want you to see it here. It's on the left. We're going to do manual uninstall of it. So instead of doing a repair, sometimes you won't get that option depending how it's set up. sometimes you will not have this option to reinstall. It would just say installed and that's it, right? This would be grayed out. If this is grayed out and you can't reinstall it, you can manually remove it. So if I do manual uninstall of Chrome, if I do a manual uninstall on Chrome, you see how it says here reinstall? Well, we can refresh that. We're going to have to go back to our control panel here. All right, applications, Google Chrome. You can still see that it's reinstall here, but like I said, it might be grayed out. So we're going to go to the Configuration Manager, and we're going to run our actions here real quick. This will basically run the cycle and see what's going on here, whether it's installed or not. And once we go through this here, and it actually takes, this will just basically go back to option just to install it. All right. I'm almost done, I promise. There's a lot of these. You just never know which one of these will actually kick it off. It is finicky, but once you install it, it works okay, you know. All right, so let me see. Applications, Google Chrome. So let's just see what happens. See, it's just going to install it now, you see. Downloading and installing software. So, I mean, it just depends how it's set up. If you have an issue where it's grayed out like this, where it just says you can't reinstall it, if you don't have an option to reinstall it, this is how you would do it. You would basically manually uninstall it, and that way you can reinstall it if you don't have the reinstall option. Anyway, I don't want to beat the dead horse anymore, as they say. I'm going to go back and look at something else that I really wanted to show you. So what I want to show you is this thing called Client Center Configuration Manager. So I'm going to run this as admin. Make sure you run it as admin after you install it on your computer. What this is, it allows you to remotely connect to the client computers and basically do the same thing we did without having access to the Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. If you are not a system admin and you don't have access to this type of stuff here, you can remotely access some of it and still control it. And I'm going to show you. It's actually really cool. So this is a manual install of it. It's called Client Center for Configuration Manager, and it's an open source program that is not necessarily made by Microsoft or anything like that. You can see it's made by this person here, but it is a verified software that is used by companies. And you guessed it, this is how you would connect to the client computer. So let's say you're just doing tech support and you want to connect and reinstall some software. You can connect to a remote client computer. And here's our same computer that we just worked on here. This is called GW1. We're going to connect to it right now. GW1, and we're going to just click connect, and it's going to connect to it. Now we're connected to it. You can see bottom here that it actually connected, and it tells you a couple of different things. But what can we do here? There are quite a few things we can do, but let's talk about when it comes to the software. So we're going to click on software distribution here. Here it is, software distribution here. Applications, we don't have anything under applications because remember, on our server, we do not have any applications set up. So right here, you can see there are no applications set up. So naturally, this is going to be blank, right, on our client computer. But if we go to advertisements, this is what when it comes to advertising, when it comes to the applications that are available to be installed, and you can see their package IDs and this and that. So we got PuTTY, we got Google Chrome, and we got 7-Zip. Well, let's do PuTTY, rerun advertisement, and we go back to it. It's going to say downloading and installing software, and it's going to want to install PuTTY again, right? So we're going to cancel out of that. So this tool is really, really useful. So that's the advertisement. And under here, you can also have scripts. You can have scripts that are that you can run that would execute certain things, right? When it comes to all of this software stuff. Here's our software summary, and you can see the things that have failed, that I've installed, those things that I've just canceled out. You can see that it failed, right? This happened just now, and this is something that happened previously here, and here's another one that failed, right? So that's okay. That's cool to know. And we got execution history. And we can see that I've canceled that right here. The last two things that just came up, user canceled the installation, right? So that's cool. It gives you all this information. All right, so service window is just kind of a schedule. It tells you when the service window is, meaning when can this be installed. Anyways, don't worry about that. That's not too useful in this case, right? So what's the other thing we can look at? If we click on the inventory, well, I purposely skip the monitoring one because it kind of gets into other things that are not software necessarily deployment related. So we're going to go to the inventory here. And if you click on pending updates, this usually shows Windows updates in here. And I guess it's possible to set up some other updates. But if you see Windows updates that are available in here, this is where they would show up. So we'd be under inventory, pending updates, and they would be pending usually Windows updates. They would see them in here, and you can manually right-click them and install like this. Right-click, install, right-click, install, or you can just select install all. Right? And then under all updates, you would see all the updates, installed and all that stuff. And then we got installed software, and here it is, 7-zip, Configuration Manager Client, Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and here are some other updates that went through. Remember that Visual C++ that I was talking about earlier, the 2015? Here it is. This is the thing I was telling you about when it comes to that client. Similar to that, right? And other things that we don't have to worry about. Okay, so what else? Let me see. What else can I talk about here that's kind of useful? So if you go to here under Agent Settings, and then you click on Install and Repair, this is a very useful tool if you want to reinstall or repair a client on a computer. So you can connect to a remote computer. Let's say there are issues when it comes to installing new software. Let's say it's failing to install updates and this and that. Here are a couple of things you can do. And you can also push agent to it, meaning that client. Here it is, SCCM agent. You can actually do a repair of it right here. You can remove it, or you can install agent, right? So you can do all this remotely without having access necessarily to the Microsoft Endpoint Manager, right? So you can do these things, which is really cool. Another useful thing that can help you here is like a restart button. I guess log off might be useful too if you want to log off all users. But if you want to do a restart, you can certainly do that as well. Or you can do a shutdown. Don't do shutdown because you may not be able to wake it up. So never do shutdown. Never do shutdown. But you can do a restart. So here's our GW1. And let's see if we can kick it off. So here's our GW1 here. I'm going to click on restart. Okay, restart. Let's go back to it. Here it is. Did you see it? It went ahead and restarted the virtual machine. So that's cool. So this is just basically telling me my Hyper-V virtual machine is not able to reconnect because it's rebooting right now. All right. So I feel we can leave it at that. So let's just kind of do a quick overview. So what did we learn here? What did we learn? We've learned that when it comes to controlling software deployments in a business environment, this Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager can be used, also known as SCCM. And this basically distributes all the software to all the clients that are connected to your domain, to your work computers and this and that. The client side of it is basically what controls the installation at the local level, and this is done through Software Center, which is the client itself, right? The Software Center is the client software that receives all these software updates, and from here we can control updates or software installs and this and that. So that's very straightforward. We learned a couple of different tools. We've learned how to create our own package and push it to different computers. We've created 7-zip, and that was pretty straightforward. And of course there are many other things we can talk about here. We got scripts too and everything like that. So I don't have any scripts installed here, but we can certainly add scripts. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know if this was actually easy to understand, because to me that's super important. If people cannot understand what I'm talking about, but most of the time they do, because I make it a point that that is the case, so that everybody can learn from me. And I love to share my knowledge, and as long as it's useful to people, that's what matters when it comes down to it. If you need a link to this lab, again, this is from Microsoft Lab. You get all of these machines from the Hyper-V, right? You get all these machines that you can run on your Hyper-V. Basically, you just go in here and import them. Actually, it's a setup and they automatically install. So it's just a setup that it does it. The only thing you have to go in is ahead of time, you have to go to settings and set up the network so that it's enabled in a proper way. Anyways, whatever. All right, I'm starting to lose my voice. All right, I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Please share with friends too. Oh yeah, share with friends. I wish you the best and take care. Bye bye.